100% of the restaurant operators that you're going to come in contact with deal with pest control. They either do it themselves or they hire a pest control operator to take care of that. Now, none of this, whether you do it yourself or have an operator, is 100%. There's just too much pressure in a restaurant environment. As you'll see in the video to come, there's a lot of things to overcome. Sanitation issues. There's also structural deficiencies that you have to deal with. Things that are very hard to overcome, but not impossible. The detour for rodents and insects overcomes all of those obstacles. They need it. The restaurant owner needs this product. It's up to us to inform them, to let them know that we're here to help, and we have a product that's going to safeguard their brand, keep their restaurant open. Because listen, if the pest control fails, you run the risk of having your restaurant closed. And that's the point that needs to be driven home. We're here to help. As a pest control operator for 25 years, that was my job, to help that restaurant owner, help that customer protect their investment, protect their business. And sometimes it's very hard to do. The detour for rodents and insects makes it very easy. It's a product that's easy to apply. It lasts long enough to do the job, and when used correctly, it works 100% of the time. What we're going to be doing right now is introducing the product into typical harborage areas. Let's take a look at some of them right now. This junction box is a prime location for cockroach activity. They'll enter through these little gaps. There's a screw here, but you notice there's still a little gap. Gap here, gap here. Great hiding place for them. Also, the back of this area, if there's a gap and if it's not sealed, is going to be a great harborage area as well. So we're going to go ahead and introduce the product. We're going to introduce the detour into these areas right now. Once the product's applied, that's going to remain viscous, actually active. We have some other placements in this restaurant that have been here now for several months, and they're still active. I know because I touched it, and you can still feel the effects. We've got a few other places I'd like to show you. They're right next to this area. Let's take a look now. This conduit area, there's a little gap right behind it. Roaches love to be there. If you've noticed, your pest control operator will usually put some bait placements on either side, a little here, about every 2 feet they'll put a bait placement. The challenge they have as a pest control operator is the competition for food. This is a food-based bait, so if there's spillage, grease on the walls, things like that, right here you got some spillage right here, that's a lot more appealing to the cockroach than their bait. With our material, it stays there. It's just predicated on the fact that they're going to walk through it. So we're going to give them a little something to walk through right now. You notice with cockroaches, the application for cockroaches, you don't need a whole lot. Their antennae are going to be bouncing along this, so it really doesn't take much. A little bit of product is going to go a long way. Also, we have one more area. We can come up here. These areas in here, there's a nice little gap running here. Cockroaches love to sit inside these areas. It's an area so that their top of their body, the bottom of their body, and one side is touching something. They love that. So we're going to introduce the product inside of here as well. Now we come into an area of concern. This is the soda machine. Now, just like the area down below where you may have some syrup spillage, we run into the same situation up in here in these heads. So, usually just pop these up, do a cursory inspection. Right here, we have some spillage right here. The syrup is glistening right here. You see the moisture. Great place for a foraging roach to come and eat. Once he finds this, he'll make his way through the bottom into this section right here, and they'll actually nest in that compartment. So we want to eliminate this as a harborage area. Great place for detour. Also in this space, it's protected by those covers. It's not going to get water inside, not going to get dust inside, not prone to extremes in heat and coolness. So that material right there is going to last a long time. So that's one of the areas where one application lasts you about a year. So now we're underneath the counter where the soda machine is, and we got the supply lines underneath here. You see there's a lot of syrup spillage on the surface of the counter down below. Also spillage on a lot of the lines. And that's perfect area for roaches to come in and eat. It's also a nice area for rodents. When they come in, they'll forage and they'll come around these areas too, because sometimes they're dripping. So we're going to put the detour on these lines back here, and a little bit up here on this, and also that the water supply line on top of the pipe. Now the nice thing about the detour product is we don't have to have a pristinely clean surface. The fact that it's got a little bit of syrup actually helps our product, makes it a little more attractive to the cockroach. So this entire area is pretty standard in a restaurant environment. You have a coffee maker, coffee machine, the hot water dispenser. Busboys come, they pick up their pitchers of water, there's a beer tap. This you'll pretty much see in any restaurant you encounter. These are hot spots. We're going to move on to a few more. Right now we're at the ice machine. This is another critical point. Of course, because there's mechanical up on top, there's water, and there's plenty of little areas where the cockroaches love to hide and forage for food. So in this situation, we're going to focus on maybe right under this hinge, this area in here, and if we can see this little crease that runs alongside. We're going to get a few more areas of concern here. One, this is a mechanical area. If you notice, there's a lot of food debris inside here we're going to attack. So these areas are areas of concern. There's a lot of debris that spills inside here. And then the roaches, they'll climb on top of this, on these lines. So we're going to introduce the detour in these areas. As we look at these areas, one of the reasons why we want to get the upper portion of these legs, when restaurants mop, they're also whipping food debris, some food particles, actually wet food particles, up into those upper areas. It's inadvertent, they can't help it, but that's what happens. So right here you see food debris on the floor. Most of it will get mopped up, but as they whip around the legs, invariably the pieces of the mop will end up flicking food particles up underneath this area right here. This is an area behind the cook line. Everybody's seen this, okay? So this is a supply line. Since this is behind a cook line, there's deep fryers, other things, this gets a nice thin layer of grease. What that means is cockroach baits are useless, insecticides are useless, there's nothing we can do about it. The roaches are going to feed off what gets deposited on this all the time. Okay, right now we're at the 2-compartment sink. Some counties regulate that you have to have 3. There is a 3-compartment sink in this establishment. For our purposes, we're going to take a look at the double compartment. Now, areas of concern are going to be, of course, the pipes underneath, the pipe chases going into the wall, and then they also have some other lines here that are feeding the water purifier off to the side. So we want to get on top of those as well. Typically you'll see bait applications from the pest control operator. Again, I've been through this before. These areas right here, they get a lot of use. They're constantly being mopped, cleaned because of what's happening right here. They're cleaning dishes, pots, pans. So we're going to put the detour in these areas here. And because of the use, because of how it gets cleaned so often, this is an area where you probably want to reapply the product maybe once a month, just because of the high pressure. All right, we're in the back of the restaurant. This is not uncommon. This scenario is very common in restaurant areas, especially in strip malls. We have a water situation. If you see there, there's a dripping pipe. This is condensation from the air unit up top around this pipe. So it's leaking here, going into here. There's food debris out here. There's a pest control operator that has their bait station out here. Now, if I'm a rat, I want nice, good, palatable food. The junkier, the better. So you've got food out here, you've got water out here. There are a lot of different harborage areas that he can go and live in out here. That bait station's utterly useless. So what happens is this becomes an area where rodents congregate every night. They're nocturnal. Every night they're going to come over here. This area hasn't been cleaned in a long time. The door to our restaurant is less than 15 feet over here. Now, I want you to look at this back door. This is a typical scenario for a lot of restaurants because they leave their back doors open all the time for ventilation. So they leave themselves open to incursion from cockroaches, mice, and rats. So that door frame area is right next to the FRP, which is the paneling on the door. Sanitary base down at the bottom, if we look here. So this is a metal frame. That's a non-porous surface. The threshold. So this is a perfect application point for the detour for rodent cockroach exclusion. So we're going to apply the material right now to these areas. So the application at the rear door is a little bit different than what we were doing inside. This has to be done with a thicker bead. If you notice, it's about a 1/4 inch bead. Because we're also going to be excluding rodents, it has to be a little thicker. So this is the way you want to apply at your doorways. Right there is about a 1/4 inch bead, roughly 12 inches long. So anything that touches that, cockroach-wise, they're pretty much doomed, and it's also going to repel the rodents. All right, we're here at this is the backsplash of the dishwashing area. Now, you see the nozzles connected to this. In this situation here, we have a piece of wood, okay? It's pulled away from the FRP paneling right here. So this is a great place for roaches to come and hide. Also, the stainless steel that's meeting this area is pulled away. It's not even secured. Roaches can literally get behind here and start nesting in this area, that hollow area. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply the detour to this area here, and we're going to apply it to this edge right in here. Maybe even hide some behind the stainless right in here. So should roaches enter the building and try to make this a harborage area, they'll come in contact with the product, they're dead. So this is our typical restaurant environment with all the typical insect and rodent hotspots. Things behind coffee makers, outlets, the cook line, double and triple compartment sinks, ice makers, your dish machine. These are things that you're going to see in every restaurant environment. They all pose a specific challenge. The cook line may be an abundance of grease, oil splatter on the back wall. This really makes it difficult for a pest control operator to gain control of an infestation or even gain a good maintenance control because the competition for food. They much rather be eating the food that's being cooked in the restaurant than our baits. So that's why the detour is so good for this environment, because it's not hurt by, let's say, the soda lines dripping a little bit of syrup. It actually makes our stuff work better. It doesn't matter if there's grease on the pipes behind the cook line. It actually helps our material. So in these environments, our product, the detour, actually augments what the pest control operator's doing. A lot of times those poor guys, they're getting a lot of heat from restaurant owners when they have a situation where there's an out of control infestation. And the restaurant owner kind of wants everything to be done by the pest control operator, and that's impossible. Especially when you consider there's usually some kind of sanitation issue, structural deficiencies that have to be overcome. And if the pest control guy doesn't have the full cooperation of the owner, then control's just never going to happen. So when we have a hole in a wall in a restaurant that the operator can't fix, the owner doesn't want to pay to fix, it's just going to be there. There's some stainless steel, as you see on the backsplashes of these areas here. If it's pulling away in a crack, that's where the detour comes in. We put the application in, it stays there, it does the work. It lasts a long time in certain areas. Of course, the doorways under the dish machine, under the soda machines, the soda lines, those are areas that you probably want to attack on a monthly basis because of the amount of use they get, and they're constantly being cleaned underneath. Other areas, you can kind of be, you know, maybe every few months you get into there, but once the detour is introduced into this environment, it's going to get you that 100% control.